Peace, peace, everyone. It's your girl Sequoia Blue back in here with another episode on this beautiful Friday. Today, our special guest is Krista. She is a dating online coach. She's going to help us figure out how to get us a man or a woman or something, you know. So basically, what made you want to become a dating coach, Krista?
Well, I was single and navigating the whole dating world and hating every minute of it and talking to other people who felt the same way. And I heard so many people say, dating is just so horrible. I'm going to give up and stay single for the rest of my life. And I was fortunate enough that I found my perfect partner, and I realized what a huge difference it makes having love in your life. And I just wanted to spread that out so that everybody can feel the same way.
I love it. That's important now, especially with the movements of men going their own way and different, different movements of people changing their minds about relationships and what it could be. So I'm happy that you jumped into that sector. And what do you say to women that are over like 34, 35? Because there's this big, you know, crazy rumor that, oh, you're middle age at 34, you won't be able to find anybody, and the successful men want the young women. What do you
Yeah.
say to some women that are dealing with that?
I think that's a big myth that I hear a lot of people say lately is, men only want younger women and that sort of thing. And it's really not true. What men want is somebody who's mature and knows what they want, right? And once you reach a certain age, whether it's, 35 or 40 or whatever it is, if by that time you generally have lived a lot of your life, you've experienced, you've worked, you've maybe had families or whatever, you know what you want. By that time, you're not a kid, right? So
Mhm.
it's drama free. And knowing what you want and being sure of yourself is very, very sexy to men. So it's something that people don't understand. It's a trait that you wouldn't think of as sexy, but knowing your own mind is really very sexy and attractive to men. So, the guys who just want the 20-year-old college girls, they're not the type of guy you want to settle down with, anyways, right?
I agree. Because they could be just a manipulation tool for them, like dating younger women, or they just want to get feel young again, which you could feel young with a woman of any age. So
Exactly.
I agree on that. And what do you say to women that want to like date, but they don't want to do online dating? What if they're like, oh, I'm scared, and what do I do?
Well, the thing about online dating is like something like 50% of relationships start online today, and it gets a bad rap, right? I mean, there's a lot of scammers. I'm not going to deny that. There's a lot of scammers in online dating, but as long as you keep your wits about you, don't ever send anybody money, obviously. But what I recommend to my clients is when you meet somebody online, you don't chat with them for a month and invest, your life or time in this person. You want to meet them really quickly, and that way you know who they are within a week or maximum 2 weeks, right? And online dating should just be a way to meet people, because I met my boyfriend on Tinder. My kids set me up and I'm like, I'm not going on that. And they said, no, no, mom, trust us. And if I hadn't met him on Tinder, I wouldn't have run into him in a million years. So obviously, I am so happy that I did. And you can hope to bump into a great guy or a girl in a grocery store, but that's leaving a lot to chance. And if
Mhm.
you go on the dating apps, it should only be an introduction, right? So you find a profile that you like, and you start chatting with the person. You get together for coffee, and just coffee, not a first date, just coffee. Within a week or two, then you can see for yourself, is this person who they said they were? Do they look like they said? Are they 20 years older than they said, or whatever? And then you decide at that point if there's enough chemistry to have your first date. But I mean, short of being introduced by friends or family, when you run into somebody casually on the street and make a connection, you don't know anything more about them than you would, you know, on a dating site. So you've got to use perspective and just sort of move through the dating site quickly, ditch the site, meet the person, and then if it's somebody who you want to have another meeting with.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like that you said Tinder because there's this big rumor, oh, Tinder's just for hookups. But I personally have met some people on Tinder that actually wanted a relationship. There's men on there that's like just want a relationship. So I'm just like, I don't get why people like assume stuff. That's why I say don't listen to everybody. Find out for yourself, because I think they're on all the dating apps. You'll see the same guy from Tinder on Bumble. So
Absolutely.
it's
I used to get Tinder and Grinder mixed up was my problem. And my daughters are like, "Oh, mom, please." I'm like, okay, I get that now. But the thing about Tinder, and I'm not saying Tinder's the best. I mean, every
yeah.
app has its own qualities, and people have their preferences. The thing about Tinder is it's just easy,
Hmm.
right? Swipe right, swipe left, off you go. So, I mean, Tinder's a good option, but you're right. It absolutely gets a bad rap that it's only people who are there for hookups, and I'm not the only person I know who has found their partner, their long term relationship on Tinder. So it absolutely happens on any of the apps and it happens organically. It's just getting comfortable with what your choices are and where you want to be.
That's true. I mean, I had my mom recently delete Plenty of Fish because there was a lot of just people that just didn't have a job or just like, you got a lot of women telling me stories. They meet men that like be like, okay, let's go on a date. You bring your lunch and I bring my lunch. You eat in the car. Just stuff like that. She was dealing with,
Right?
and I said, okay, get off Plenty of Fish. But I probably shouldn't have said that. Probably stay on there because there's probably someone that she might could meet. You know.
Well, and I asked a question today with my audience. I said, what would make dating easier for you? And everybody kind of said the same thing, right? Knowing who the person is, or knowing, the background, or doing a background check, or having a magic wand. But in reality, you just have to kind of work your way through. But I think you also have to remember is that not everybody is good at writing a profile, right? So I mean, that sort of broadens the scope rather than narrowing it. But if you get somebody who's kind of shy and nervous about being in online dating, and they do a profile and it's less than perfect, does that mean they are? It absolutely doesn't.
Hmm.
So you kind of have to give people a chance that maybe you wouldn't normally. Um,
Mm.
if you're judging them strictly on the basis of their bios, maybe it's somebody who you think, "Ugh, their bio is kind of boring," but maybe they just don't have writing skills. Maybe they're fantastic carpenters, or amazing doctors, or anything, whatever, a teacher, whatever. Maybe they're fantastic people, but writing a bio is not their strength. And so, I think that there's a lot of people who get lost behind an ineffective biography.
Ooh, I love that. Because I feel like the profile does matter. Like I remember Dr. Phil was saying years ago when dating online first got real popular, he was saying that certain pictures you have to have, show a picture of you. What is your recommendation for like how a profile should look, and especially for a woman, or even men too. I'm not gonna leave out the men.
Well, the profile, if you want to have an effective profile, then there's a couple things you have to do. The first thing I really recommend is not making a profile like a resume, right? You want to keep it brief, and you want to keep it mysterious. You don't want to tell everything in that little profile. So, like, instead of saying my name's Krista and I like to travel and I cook, you can say, hey, I would love to meet somebody who is up for an adventure, whether it's breakfast under the Eiffel Tower, or, watching a movie on a quiet night. So then they get the idea that you like to travel without saying, I want to travel, right?
Hmm.
And, you can say, instead of saying, I'm looking for long term, you can say, I'm looking for my last first date, right? So you make it mysterious so that ideally when somebody reads your profile, they want more. They look at it and think, ooh, I want to know more about this person. So I'm going to talk to them to try and find out more. And you
Hmm.
don't want to be sort of vague. The way people are on Facebook when they say, oh, I guess today's not going the way I want it, right? And
Hmm.
they're kind of fishing for people to say, well, what's wrong? You don't want to be vague like that, but you want to have a little air of mystery so that
Hmm.
they're interested to hear more about you. And then your pictures should sort of further that thought. So with your pictures, you need to have preferably one sort of headshot, but not a business headshot because they are so sterile, right? So you
Yeah.
want something interesting. You want to be able to see your eyes, right? Because
Mm.
the eyes are the gateway to the soul. And so many people, when they have sunglasses on, you sort of have no idea who they are or what they're about. You want to have one full body picture. And a lot of people push back on this one, but it's really important because everybody has different preferences, right?
Mm.
And, if you prefer a curvy, fuller figured woman and you meet somebody and she's a runner with a very lean body, they're not your type. And
Mm.
so that's something that you need to know in advance, right? And it doesn't
Yeah.
mean that people are judging people because not everybody wants skinny and not everybody wants curvy and everybody has different desires. So having a full body shot allows people to make a choice instead of being surprised when they meet you because you're not the way you led yourself to be, if you know what I
Mm.
mean.
Yep.
Another thing is you want your pictures to be interesting. Best thing you can do is have something that sparks conversation, right? So that
Mhm.
they can send you a message and say, hey, I saw your picture. What's with the newspaper when you're hanging off the Eiffel Tower, right?
That
Something
makes
that will,
sense.
yeah, something that creates interest. um the other thing is make sure your pictures are true to you.
Mm.
So if you've been on one hike in your life but you prefer cocktail parties and ball gowns, don't put that one picture of you hiking because you think more men will be interested, or women, because then you're going to attract somebody who likes hiking but you don't,
Mm. Yeah, that's
right?
true. Yep. Yep.
And if you don't ever wear makeup, don't put yourself in that one night that you went to a black tie affair,
Yeah.
because it's a different representation. Whoever you meet, whoever is your perfect partner, is going to love you for exactly who you are. So you don't want to pretend to be somebody else. You want somebody to be interested in you exactly on your own merits.
I love this. I mean, I love that because that I was thinking the same thing. If you like, because I'm someone I don't wear a lot of makeup, so for me, I made sure that I put pictures on there where I am just barefaced and showing my lipstick and the little stuff that I wear, and that's some great advice that no one really brings up, but that makes a whole bunch of sense.
And you want to have a picture that shows you in a flattering light, of
Yeah,
course, right?
yeah, yeah.
But you still want it to be a true representation of you, and they shouldn't be any more than 6 months or maximum a year old.
Oh
So
yeah.
when I did my dating profile, every man I met said, you look better than your pictures, which is the best thing you want to hear,
Yes,
right?
you want to hear that.
You don't want to hear somebody go, oh, you don't look anything like your pictures, right?
Yeah,
You
you
do
don't want to
not
hear that.
want their first reaction to be disappointment. And you may have looked fabulous 20 years ago, and you may look fabulous now, but you do not look the same as you did 20 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what a lot of men were saying they were dealing with is being catfish with women that were showing pictures of them in college, and they were like totally different body. They're like, man, do not catfish me. So that makes sense. That was good advice.
Yeah.
And so, what are the top like dating apps do you recommend? Women join or men too.
Well, I mean, it's as with anything, it's personal preference. Tinder, like we said, is super quick and fast. OK Cupid has a reputation for having the hottest guys, but I don't believe that. I think
Hmm.
they're all, like you said, there's a lot of guys on, or women both, on multiple platforms. Um, Bumble is great,
Hmm.
and a lot of women like it because they can make the first move. But there's also a lot of women who don't feel comfortable making the first move, right?
Hmm.
Because then it becomes a masculine feminine energy thing.
Yep.
So if you want to be in your feminine receiving energy and you want a man to be in their masculine energy, that throws the whole thing into flux, because if the woman is reaching out, making the first step, then they are in their masculine energy, stepping out and
Hmm.
doing that. So, but
That's
it
true.
still has merit. And Coffee Meets Bagel is another one that's become really popular, and that's It's just a good quality one. It's where it's you can meet somebody who's
Oh
in your
yeah.
proximity and all of that. So I think
Yes.
that
Oh, my bad.
no, it's okay. And Plenty of Fish, I never really loved Plenty of Fish. I don't know why. I think because they have a back end that's all about hookups and threesomes and things like that,
Yeah,
and
they.
that made me nervous.
Hmm.
So unfortunately, I never really took to that. But I don't think that it's necessary to pay for an app ever. You know, you can get
Mm.
by very well with the free apps and the free features that these banking or these dating apps have. You don't need to pay for an app, and you're not going to necessarily get better matches, and you're not going to necessarily get more or anything like that. So stick with the free ones and see what comes up.
Yeah, I totally agree. And what about some women that want a matchmaker? Like, there's different matchmakers out, and they're charging like 5,000, 10,000, and women are anxious to, I don't know how many men are doing it, but I think there are a good amount of men doing it now because I think one of the coaches I've met, she said that she only matches men now because they're easier to match.
Yeah.
But do you think that the women need to pay for a matchmaker if they're
I
desperate?
don't I don't think so. I mean, I've heard a few stories about matchmakers, and none of them have been really great. And, I spoke to somebody who was actually a business coach, and she said she paid for a matchmaker and she was really excited. And she said the matchmaker provided zero matches that she would ever be interested in.
Mm,
And she paid the money, and I think it's hard for somebody. Think about it. When somebody sets you up on a blind date, right, they have the best intentions, and if it's a friend, they probably know both of you and think you're good together, and sometimes it works, but a lot of times it just doesn't.
mm-mm, yeah. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's why I was like, that, what was it called? Twalkify. My mom almost got involved with them. And I said, no, let's just not, let's just
Yeah.
wait, see how things go. But now I'm motivated to tell her to try Tinder and do not put Tinder under the rug, people, because stop it. Just think for yourselves. So bless you. Oh, if you're blessed, I said bless you if you're sneezing, but
So no, it's a cough. I've got a little bit of a cold.
oh no. Yeah, COVID's still rampant, but but but
Sorry.
also, oh, you're fine. This is a chill podcast. Also, what is the first thing that you teach women? Are you just a dating coach for women? Or are you for women and men too?
No, I'm a dating coach for men and women.
Okay, okay,
um
perfect.
my thing is that men are from Mars and women are from Venus, and they just need a translator, right?
Yes.
So men and each sex thinks the other one has it easy, and none of them do. So the
Mm-hmm.
very first thing that I will teach, and the first thing I teach men and women are different. The first thing I teach women is that they really need to love themselves and be comfortable in their own skin so that
Mm-hmm.
they can attract somebody who is the same as them, right? You want to be the person you want to date.
Mm.
So you want to be positive and comfortable with yourself, and sometimes it's a lot of work to do that, and I work through that process with people, making them helping them understand their qualities and their experience and everything that's led them to be this amazing person that they are. um, with men, the first thing I work with them is communication and learning how
Mm-hmm.
to communicate. So, you know, one of the things I say to men, first and foremost, is please do not ever message a woman and say, "Hey, beautiful,"
Mm.
because it just comes off as inauthentic.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
feel like they're complimenting people, but it doesn't come off that way. So use their name. They have a name, use it, and take an interest in their profile and their pictures. And it's funny, I was talking to a man one time and he goes, I get lots of matches. I don't have time to make an interesting comment to every single one of them. I'm like, yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you had to copy and paste it, right?
Yeah. Chat
Because he was
GPT.
he was saying all he says is hey. And that was one of my things is if you send me a one word greeting, I'll block you and walk away. Because if that's
Mm.
the best you can come up with when you're trying to get me interested in you, then I'm not interested. So, I mean, even if you had to cut and paste, you know, hey, Sequoia, it is really lovely to meet you. What are some things you like to do in the winter or whatever, right? Like you can create something interesting. And if you, like I always say, time it and see how long it takes. It doesn't take long to come up with a short sentence that expresses a little interest in the person you're trying to talk to.
Yeah, I totally agree. And now you got Chat GPT, you got all these sites now. You can either, and that will help
Yeah.
you with your profile too. You just go on Chat GPT, type in some characteristics, tell it what you want to do, and it just helps. I mean, that will help with the profile and just responding to people if like you're socially awkward or nervous, you know.
And, and that's for sure. I mean, people are nervous and you have to take that into account. You can't judge somebody. I mean, sometimes you can, right? Sometimes
Hmm.
it's just a complete mismatch. But sometimes there's a really sweet person, guy or girl, who's just painfully shy and doesn't know what to say or how to say. And sometimes you have to sort of use your intuition to give somebody a second chance, right?
Yes, intuition, because I do think things are spiritually inclined. Like there's a certain energy that you get from people, and it might not be that they're a bad person, but you're like, you know what, this not my person. Something just isn't clicking. And it's the times I've had that. Like it wasn't that they did something wrong. I just didn't feel like it was my person. And just being confident enough to say, let me wait until to find that person. Because I don't. But some women I know nowadays they're kind of picky, and that's a big topic. Women want 6'6", 6 foot 6 inches, and 6 figures. And and sometimes you might be okay if a little short guy that's 5'8", but make the 6 figures.
Well, so here's the thing that I say about that is the more specific you are in your profile, the more it narrows down the search and the more it limits you. Because I'll be perfectly honest, um, I grew up, um, my dad always, and I'm 5'8". I'm not that tall, but I'm tall enough. And my dad would always say, "Oh, you're so big and tall, and isn't that great?" And I'm like, that is not the quality I want to be encouraging, right? And so I grew up always thinking I was kind of um, too big and overweight and just too big. And so I was when I met my partner, well, when I first started dating, I had, I wanted somebody 5'10" or taller or whatever, because I felt that if I met somebody who was smaller, then it would just make me feel bigger. It wasn't anything against that. It was how I was going to feel about myself. And it wasn't until I changed my profile to lower the height that I met my partner. And he is actually
Mm.
he's an inch shorter than me, and he doesn't care at all. He thinks I'm wonderful. And I realized that he could be 6'2" and I wouldn't love him one bit more. And really, at the end of the day, certain things don't matter. And I mean, I have a client who's 6'2" and
Mm.
she won't date somebody shorter than 6 feet. And I get that. 6'2" is a very tall woman, and that's
Hmm.
amazing. But she also finds it difficult to find somebody. And to her, that's super important. She won't change the height. And there are certain non negotiable things like that, like smoking. If you don't like a smoker, if you don't want to be with a smoker, that's not going to change. It's not going to improve if you remove that and you meet somebody who smokes. You're still going to be kind of uncomfortable, right? So you really have to check out your list and decide what is a must have and what's a preference,
I love that. That's the all
right?
fact. And I think that's what will help women just find love, and men too that are picky. I think that's the key. I like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Because you don't know.
you don't know, because you could just get with that 6 foot dude and then he just treats you bad. Just get with somebody that is gonna nourish your soul, because this life is short. Um, Now, what would you say to someone that has disability? Like there's a lot of people that got long COVID or issues that happen from COVID or just issues in general. And they're just like, man, I don't know how I'm a date because I have these disabilities. What advice would you give them that when they feel uncomfortable on a date because they might walk funny or something?
Um, First of all, I would not recommend putting it in your profile.
Okay.
I would recommend waiting until you're chatting with somebody and if it's something that's going to sort of affect your physical appearance, I'm sorry, just a sec.
So you're fine.
I'm so sorry.
No,
If
it's
it's
fine.
something that's going to affect your physical appearance, then you do want to let them know. Say, just so you know, I spoke to a lady who's in my group and she had cancer and she has a colostomy.
Mhm.
And so she said, at what point do I tell them this? And so, I think that with something like that, that is so very deeply personal, you need to sort of get a sense of what the person that you're talking to is like, whether they're shallow and they're going to be worried about anything like that, or if they seem to be a more deeply caring person. And then if it's not a visible issue, then wait until you meet them, because um, if it's somebody who you don't hit it off with, then you didn't need to tell them in the first place. But if it's a physical issue, like you said, if they have like a severe injury that they limp, or um, they're any sort of thing that's going to be obvious when you meet them, then
Mhm.
probably a heads up so that they're not shocked, and um, because their reaction might be sporadic but also hurtful, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if it's something like that that's going to be obvious when they meet you, then you need to give them a little heads up and tell them. And you know what? If they are not interested and they say, "Okay, great, I don't want to meet you," then they're jerks, and that's better to know that now.
Mhm.
Whereas, like I said, the things that are not immediately obvious, then you can wait until you meet them, because maybe it wouldn't even be a match in the first place.
That's the all fact. Oh, that was the best advice because I was thinking along that lines too. I love it. So before we wrap it up, I always ask people, what is a saying or quote that you go by?
Well, what I always say when I sign off on all my live videos or TikToks or whatever is, I always say, embrace yourself so that somebody else can too.
Okay, snap, snap. It's all about that self love because then you'll be more fruitful in that relationship. I love it.
Exactly.
So where can people hit you up for coaching or services or your
Well, my Facebook page is where I am all the time, and everybody sees me there. It's all my it's where I live, I think, and that's just Krista Melanson is my Facebook name, Krista Melanson. So it's Melanson, and also I have a freebie on my Facebook page, or sorry, on my website, which is just krista-marie.com.
perfect? And I'll also add that in the show notes so everybody will be able to see it there as well. So I want to thank you for coming on here today. You gave some great gems, and I'm excited. And I want to thank the audience for listening and subscribe and share and be blessed and safe out there, y'all. Peace.
Thank you so much, Sequoia. It was